Hey gang, before we start 205 Live, we want to remind you that Byte That is a fan-supported podcast. One of the ways that you can support us and get yourself a free audiobook is by signing up for a 30-day free trial of Audible at audibletrial.com/ByteThat. There are tons of wrestling audiobooks, books about video games, and more to choose from, and you can pick one to keep for free forever. Not bad, right? I use Audible every week and cannot recommend it enough. That's audibletrial.com/ByteThat. Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to episode 205. Wait for it, Keith. Wait for it, Keith. Live.
Yeah.
Yes, it finally happened. Keith got his wish where we are live for 205 Live.
We're here, baby.
And you're here, which is the thing that matters
I'm here,
most.
baby.
Because people were a little bit afraid. My name is Juan Velas. That person over there is Keith Poshak from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. We got Ryan McNulty from Boston, Massachusetts. Byte That is a weekly podcast you can check out live at youtube.com/ByteThatCast every single Wednesday night at around 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. We talk about Raw, Smackdown Live. This week's agenda is super packed because it wasn't just one solid week of wrestling. It was an overall great package. Forgetting Battleground, I think as long as we completely forget about the fact that Battleground happened, hey guys, it was an awesome week to be a wrestling fan, right?
Yeah, it was pretty good. And I don't think Battleground was as bad as everyone is saying it is. You guys can,
Yeah,
check
you're
out
on
my
the
review
other side of it.
Yeah, my review is up on
Ryan-
both BT Plus and the YouTube channel. It really, okay, was it great? No, but everyone's acting like it's the worst pay-per-view ever. I think there's been far more offensive content than that pay-per-view.
Ryan, I'm with you, buddy. Wasn't that bad, but we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a minute there, but this is a fan-supported show, so every single week we love to highlight our patrons, which are people that directly support us by going over to patreon.com/ByteThat. And without further ado, Ryan, who do we got to thank this week, buddy?
This week, we'd like to thank Joe Wingdenland, Elmin Kurtovic, I always mess that up, Overcooked Bacon, and Amir War. Thank you guys so much for your support. It truly means a lot.
We made sure to not overcook that bacon. It's really very much there. Actually, thanks to some of that bacon, Keith got some of that energy drink going on, right?
I did. I may be back, and I did not come unequipped because thanks to Mr. Overcooked Bacon, I came with a Monster Rehab tea and lemonade edition. I know he asked me to get a Red Bull, but Red Bull is not something that I can consume because it reminds me of things that I won't get into on this show. So
okay.
So to Monster instead. Here's to you, Overcooked Bacon.
Yeah. He dropped a super chat donation. So one of the benefits of doing the podcast live is that you want to make sure that you have a comment, you have something that gets brought up on the podcast. You can drop a donation or a super chat, and it gets brought up at the portion before the questions on the podcast. Now, before we go to SmackDown, Raw, and all that, as Ryan mentioned, he has a review available on BT Plus, which officially launched this past weekend, so that is awesome. So officially, those on the road, if you haven't, subscribe to BT Plus. Just search Byte That on Apple Podcast, on Stitcher, wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can check out reviews, debates, a lot more of Byte That. So let's take it over to Keith first. You said that you didn't think Battleground was a bad show then, right?
No, I thought it was good. It wasn't aggressively bad. Where I would say it was a better show than Great Balls of Fire. If we're going by this month in WWE pay-per-view, let me finish. Great Balls of Fire had higher highs in the show. Like the good parts of Great Balls of Fire were better than all of Battleground, period. But Battleground was a more consistent show where the lows of Great Balls of Fire were much more egregious than what happened at Battleground, because it was a pretty good show. There weren't any 5-star matches on the show, but there were a lot of middle of the road matches, and the Punjabi prison admittedly wasn't that good, but I don't think it was aggressively terrible enough to consider it a bad show. It was just a very middle of the road show. I think people are freaking out because of the expectation they've set for SmackDown more than the actual quality of the show itself, because it was fine. Nakamura and Corbin had a fine match. Minus the finish, Kevin Owens and AJ Styles had a fine match. The Divas 5-way elimination match, it was fine. Women's match was fine. The tag team match, it was fine. They were all fine matches, just nothing like crazy happened.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, it's really, I think people thought Great Balls of Fire was, the consensus was that was an amazing show, which I found to be like, it was a pretty good show, but I wasn't blown away by it. And Battleground was also, I thought, a decent show that people went way too negative on.
Yeah, I just wasn't thrilled by it. Like, I watched all of it, and like, I thought Baron Corbin versus Nakamura was a bad match. Yes, we got SmackDown Live afterwards. I just thought it was way too slow for me. Like, keep in mind, I say that as a guy that has openly stated I'm not generally a fan of Nakamura matches. I love the match he had with Sami Zayn at NXT TakeOver, but that was his first match. But it's fine. You know, like, I'm perfectly okay with realizing that maybe he's just not meant for me, you know? And that's okay. I thought that the Kevin Owens AJ Styles thing was quite interesting, but then once again, we got SmackDown Live. It's almost like WWE did Battleground as a way to hype up SmackDown Live. They did the reverse thing, like Battleground was the go-home show to SmackDown Live, because you look at both shows, and if you completely remove the actual names, I think people would openly mistake one thing for another. Because then Great Khali. I mean, Great Khali came back. So at least we got to talk about that.
The return that literally
second.
nobody wanted to see. Oh,
Why
did the Great Khali come back?
Oh, that was so painful. I'm sad we didn't get the Punjabi Playboy theme song playing. But holy crap.
Yeah, he just gave out the Ginger's theme.
And his Titantron.
At least use his heel theme, you know, Khali's. He had a pretty good one that would have fit fine.
That was a good theme.
I'm kind of glad, though, that he didn't show up again. I hope that is a one-off. We don't need any more Great Khali than we have.
No, we're good. We're good.
Agree. And that stuff with him and Randy Orton on the side of the Punjabi prison kind of ruined the whole thing for me, because you could easily see that Orton could have just kind of slid through one of those holes in the Punjabi prison. So why are you climbing to the top?
That was a little weird. Like,
I mean, there was a lot wrong with the Punjabi prison.
Yeah.
That probably doesn't make the
What
top
about the
five.
Shawn Michaels spot? So we have one of the Singh brothers basically reenact the Hell in a Cell spot, but because he's so lightweight, he like bounced off that table and nearly got killed. But it was pretty cool to see that, right?
That is, he has a highlight. I'm assuming it's the same one. He has a highlight reel of going through tables in the most painful possible ways with Randy Orton this year. So he's going to be on a couple of "Don't Try This at Home" segments in the upcoming future, and I'm into that.
Yeah, I mean, the Singh brothers are the MVPs, and you know what? I didn't think the Punjabi prison match was that bad. It ran a little too long, and it got a little repetitive at the end. But I actually think the match itself, it's unfortunate that it's so centered around, like, you need, like, the Great Khali or Jinder Mahal to be able to ever do the match, unless, you know, one of them gets sick, and then you have, Big Show and whoever in the match. But the thing is, it actually came off to me as like more violent than recent Hell in a Cell matches. I feel like there's actually some potential for kind of a more brutal match, because I mean, you looked at like Orton and he was like all cut up and bleeding, and you're just like, damn, like this match actually can get pretty violent. And then you had one of the Singh brothers going through the table. Like, I actually was kind of impressed with the brutality of it, and I was like, there's some potential here. It's just unfortunate the way it's positioned. If they like take the bamboo and make it metal and rename it something, I actually think you got a pretty cool match type. And maybe you You ditch the whole like 60-second door thing.
That's
but
stupid.
even
That is stupid.
Even that, you could play around with that and it could be interesting. But normally, like the more rules you add, the dumber a match type gets. So maybe you just keep it simple. Escape 2 cages.
I would actually just do it that you have 5 minutes. Like in 5 minutes that will open. So like that match isn't gonna end in 5 minutes, but at the same time the whole psychology is you gotta wear down your opponent to try to maybe escape that. As opposed to, hey, point at a door, and if it closes, you get another 3. Like that part's just super lame. But the rest of the match in concept, yeah, like it's way better than Hell in a Cell now. Like not back in the day, but considering how toned down things have become, I don't think it's that bad of an option, but I don't think they'll be doing it again.
Yeah, especially not with the Punjabi prison theme. But I thought the door thing was cool the first time, and then it just kind of dragged on and on. There was that one moment where Jinder and Randy just kind of looked at each other after the first door closed, and there was like some real psychology, like, oh, we're stuck in here, we're locked in here together now. And I really appreciated that moment, but the match just kind of felt like it dragged more and more. And then later in the match, when the final door closed, it almost seems like Randy had an advantage climbing over the first cage because the cages are so close together that Randy was just able to, I'm going to hop on the second cage and start climbing out. There's some weird little things that I feel like if they tweaked it, they have a really interesting match concept there.
True. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we go to the Raw and SmackDown polls because every single week you can head on Twitter, ByteThatCast, and really vote. Like let us know which show you thought was better, and you do that by voting on Monday after Raw, voting on SmackDown right after the show has concluded. And this week, man, I am so happy to be a wrestling fan. I'm so happy to see the positive reception. When we go first to Raw, we see that 53% gave Raw a 3 out of 4, followed by 25% at 2 out of 4, stating it was just okay. When we move on over to SmackDown Live, 51% gave it a 4 out of 4. Now, keep in mind that this is Talking Smack has been canceled edition of SmackDown, right? So, like, you could maybe have some people that maybe would try to sabotage some of this stuff, but you only saw 4% give it a 1 out of 4. So, overall, both shows I thought were very strong for very different reasons. And the biggest and most important thing, and if you look at our headline, it's about Cena versus Nakamura taking place next week. Next week on Raw and SmackDown Live, we have 2 matches that we can speculate about, right? We can almost give our predictions about. Like one of them is a triple threat match where these 3 guys already have a championship opportunity at SummerSlam. So it's just about watching the train wreck unfold on Raw. But then on SmackDown, you get a dream match. So both shows, like you have something that you really want to look forward to. And as a wrestling fan, you can talk with other people, right? Like, is it going to be Cena? Is it going to be Nakamura? Is somebody going to interfere? And then it's going to be Nakamura versus Jinder. But then wouldn't it make more sense because of the whole anti-America thing for it to be Cena? That conversation is awesome to me because we don't get it nearly as much as we should, right?
Yeah, this was an excellent week for wrestling where we actually got, for the first time in a long time, a great Raw and a great SmackDown. I mean, these have to be the most positive poll results we've ever gotten for 2 shows combined. So it's nice. Raw's been on a roll, and I think Battleground, like I said, it wasn't that bad of a show, but it was kind of dull. And this seemed like, okay, there was a wake up call. Like let's try hard on SmackDown. And it was clear that they were like, we want to win you back. This was a we want you back, baby episode of SmackDown. Like, this is what we can do with our roster. Cause there's a lot of great competitors on that roster that they've just been kind of not using to their full advantage quite like they could be. And it seems like finally, Battleground's out of the way. We're on the road to SummerSlam, so business has to pick up, and you're seeing that with both shows.
Yeah, I really hope that they keep this level of consistency going into SummerSlam because it's both shows were on a downslope up until now, but now it's kind of head to head Raw versus SmackDown for who's going to have the better build up for SummerSlam, and I hope they kind of really go all in on SummerSlam, it being one of the big four, the biggest or the second biggest of the four. And here's to hoping they keep it up, because great week of wrestling.
And it almost goes back to something that you were saying last week, Keith, I believe it was. And another thing is that
I wasn't here last week.
Oh,
so
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks
I said
ago.
Nothing.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. But that it felt like a fight. It felt like the whole week people were struggling to battle, like Braun Strowman on Raw. That thing was epic. I think, like, if you want to use the word epic for something in wrestling, him damn near killing a security man.
Can we have an Olympic event where it's just Braun Strowman shot putting human beings?
Guard vaulting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I'd be all up for that. But both shows, it's like Nakamura versus Cena. Who's better? And then you saw, right, like Cena cut a Super Cena promo. And ideally, I thought that was going to be it. Okay, he openly said he was Super Cena, and he was going to get the championship opportunity.
Also, sorry to keep butting in here, but John Cena had the best line that I didn't even know I wanted to hear. When he ends his promo, he's just like, "Play the trumpets."
Oh, yeah.
That is the best.
That
I
needs
hope
to
he
be a
ends.
thing now.
I hope he ends every promo going forward with the words,
Even a pissed
"Play the
off
trumpets."
one. He's like really upset. And now,
Play
the damn trumpets. Play the trumpets, boy. I love it so much. It felt like people cared about beating each other up. I even saw 205 Live. I mean, I figured, hey, if we're doing 205 Live as an episode, the least we can do is at least dedicate a couple of minutes to it. And it was the same thing. I felt competition. And of course, just looking at Keith, I know he didn't watch it. Even though you're the one that wanted 205 Live to be a thing. I don't get you, but you're so damn lovable, Keith. I guess it's just difficult to really hate you, like, for an extended period of time. So let's talk a little bit more about Braun Strowman. So the whole thing this past week has been, here we go. It's going to be Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. And then we get the traditional thing where everybody's coming out. Everybody wants a championship opportunity. And I thought that the result would be a triple threat match where the winner faced Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. And I was already disappointed. And lo and behold, there's still a little bit of a controversy because it does seem like SummerSlam could become a big multi-man show, but it seems like maybe it won't happen. Maybe it's going to be Jinder Mahal versus, like, I'll get to that later. It's just, there's that picture online of if you go in a time capsule or time machine in 2014 and you tell somebody, hey, it's going to be John Cena versus Shinsuke Nakamura, and the winner main events SummerSlam against Jinder Mahal. All of that sounds insanely stupid. And it would never happen, and it did.
What a time. What a time we live in.
But what do you guys make of this fatal four-way match? Samoa Joe, Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman, Brock Lesnar. I think, once again, it's going to be pretty epic.
Oh, my God. I can't wait for just 4 human steaks to just go into the ring and beat the living hell out of each other. Just 4 slabs of meat going in and just... This match, as good old JR would say, is going to be bowling shoe ugly. There ain't going to be nothing pretty about this one. People are going to get beat up. People are going to get hurt. And oh my God, I cannot wait for this match. I'm potentially so excited. So excited.
I just need isolated audio of Keith describing that and just post it to Reddit, no context.
Yeah.
And just let people enjoy
just
that.
4 slabs of meat.
Yeah. So the Fatal 4-Way match, I had thought, in the back of my mind that this was a very real possibility. And I love it because every single person in this match has a real shot at winning it. Everyone is a believable winner. The triple threat next week is going to be awesome and a nice preview of what to expect and definitely get people excited for it. And the fact that it's not going to be the exact match at SummerSlam, it's going to be a cool match. And then we're like, okay, what's going to happen when you add Brock Lesnar to the mix? How is that going to change the dynamic? So that I actually really like that. And I think Brock Lesnar included in this Fatal 4-Way, any single one of these guys has a chance to walk out with the championship. And that's what's going to make it really fun, because maybe people think Roman Reigns is the obvious answer, but maybe they're not ready to do that yet. It could go any way. I mean, Samoa Joe has really just come into his own on the main roster, and is just crushing it right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if they rewarded him. And nobody's on fire more than Braun Strowman right now. So every single one of these guys has a real shot, and I'm super pumped for it.
Exactly, and because it's a fatal four-way, this is their out to take the title off of Brock until WrestleMania and put it on somebody else. It might end up being Roman Reigns, but it might not. Like Ryan said, everybody legit has a shot at winning this because everybody can be pinned. Brock Lesnar doesn't need to be involved in the situation to crown a new champion. So it feels nice that even though you have the guy that beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania this year and the guy that has been basically undefeated for years now, everybody in this match has a shot. It's not just about Brock and Roman. Braun Strowman and Samoa Joe are able to stand there and be on a level playing field as these guys that have been pushed to the entire moon, and that's a really cool feeling.
Now, the other thing you want to add to that is that because there's all these rumors about, hey, Brock Lesnar, is he going to go back to the UFC or not? The fact that we know that there's that backstage information makes you think, is the WWE going to then maybe take the championship away from him and maybe build Braun Strowman as this unbeatable force? Or are they just going to stick that with him? Is it going to be a fluke victory, kind of like AJ Styles, pinning a Chris Jericho on SmackDown Live? There are so many different options that above everything, the most important thing is we get to enjoy the match. Like, regardless of the outcome, we get to enjoy a match on Raw.
Just 4 steaks, baby.
We get
just 4 steaks.
Hey, but remove one of them steaks, and we get a 3-steak dinner this coming Monday. And because we know that the 3 of them are already number 1 contenders, we just get to enjoy a match. We get to enjoy the slabs of meat.
Oh, just throw more human beings around the arena, Braun Strowman. Have security have to break that up. Oh, I can't wait. I'm very excited. I never thought I'd say these words, but I'm very excited for Monday Night Raw next week.
Oh man,
that's frightening.
If only this was a weekly thing. Hey, maybe this summertime we won't get summertime blues. We'll actually get some. No, actually, let's change it back to Emma now. What the hell's happening with Emma? So Emma's been tweeting. Hashtag GiveEmmaAChance, and then she's also been publishing some very attractive photos of Emma on Instagram. If you don't follow her, she's definitely got her audience. She's got her fan base, that's for sure. So then she gets to this match with Nia, and I was actually thinking for a solid second, hey, maybe they'll have Emma put up a fight. I mean, Emma was beat quite easily last time by Nia. No. Nia actually debuts like a senton splash, damn near kills the woman, and then I'm just not sure where they're going to go. I liked a little bit of the edge where she had like, hey, what do I got to do to get recognized? Maybe I'll just start dating your son, referring to Jason Jordan Angle, who also made his Raw in-ring debut. Do you guys see this as a Zack Ryder thing? I know they used to be in a relationship, but Zack Ryder had this thing where it's like, hey, push me. No. And I'm seriously not pushing you. I'm doing quite the opposite. I'm going to destroy you. Or will this lead to like a bigger thing with Emma, and this is the start of a brand new story?
I honestly see it more as a JTG thing. If you remember a couple of years ago where I think it was JTG who went on Twitter and then went on a rant about like WrestleMania weekend pay or how like people have to basically provide costs for the entire WrestleMania weekend, and went on this big rant against the company, and then got obliterated on Raw the next night. So I think it was probably more like that to silence Emma, and I probably don't, unfortunately, because Emma is very talented. I don't see it leading to anything immediately. I feel like it's a more damage than good situation.
So sad.
Yeah, it really is a sad situation because you look at the beginning of NXT, coming to the WWE network and all of that. And Paige and Emma were very much the two who started this whole divas into women's revolution thing. They're very much at the forefront of that. And both of them are just not doing too well. So with Emma, obviously all the injuries and stuff, I don't blame WWE for being a little gun shy with wanting to commit to her, because she's had like 3 injuries in a very short span of time. Now, I think Emma's really talented. The thing is, I'm thinking she's in no F's given mode at this point because, she had the Emelina thing that didn't work out. Her original gimmick on the main roster didn't work out. And she probably just doesn't care anymore and is just campaigning for herself. But like you said, comparing it to Zack Ryder, if you get yourself over, like if this works and she has like a groundswell of community that gets behind her,
She's
going to
get pushed off a wheelchair.
Yeah, the wheelchair's going off the stage. And like as soon as WWE wants to take all that away, they can before it even gets started. So I don't think campaigning for yourself online is a smart move because WWE is probably only going to look at that in a negative way and de-push you for it.
You know it. So with that, let's get to the next topic in the women's revolution. And this one's a bit of a head scratcher. So we had the match between Sasha and Bayley on Raw, which admittedly I wasn't a huge fan of either person that would win, just because I'm a little burnt out on Sasha and Bayley. But it was the case of if we had Bayley win, we're just going back to like this is your life. I don't know if maybe they're going to try to right the wrongs that they wrote. If you had Sasha and Bliss, they have similar sizes. I think that they can tell like a lengthier story, in SummerSlam, and then post SummerSlam, maybe Bayley getting overshadowed. But no, they just had Bayley become the number one contender. So it's going to be her against Alexa Bliss. What do you guys make of that, considering, as I just mentioned, like it wasn't a good feud? Their first one, no. Like the matches were okay. I'm not talking about the matches, but I think that a lot of people are still like getting over what just happened, because that was like what? This Is Your Life happened like 2 months ago, I want to say.
Something like that.
It's like a month and a half.
2 pay-per-views ago. But
which in wrestling years is like 4 years, but still,
yeah,
some people
going
don't
into
forget.
Extreme Rules, I believe, was
because they
it
had
was
that
happening.
kendo stick match.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that this is set in stone for the match. I wouldn't be surprised if they added Sasha Banks to the mix. I know we're getting into like a million multi-person matches at SummerSlam. I just don't buy that they're just going to go immediately back to Bayley versus Alexa Bliss. Now, their first match, which I think was Payback, I thought that was actually a really good match. So I'm not completely upset if they do that, but it's like we felt like we were just here, and now we're just going to go immediately back to it. I think Sasha is finding her way into this match.
Because it was a good match, that Payback match, but the match of Sasha versus Alexa, I would say, is better than both of the Bayley Alexa Bliss matches, and for that reason, it feels like the wrong choice to me, or it feels like the weird choice, where you have so much stigma from that Alexa Bliss Bayley feud, and maybe their whole thing is, okay, let's try and make this work again. But it feels like they're just trying to right a wrong that doesn't necessarily need righting at this time, because you have a better match quality, you have a better build up to work with, but you just chose not to do it. Now there is a very big possibility that Sasha Banks, that's what I'm looking for, finds her way into this match for sure, but maybe not, because it does feel like it's really easy to just say, yeah, every match at SummerSlam is going to be a multi-man match or a multi-woman match, but I don't think this is going to be one of those situations.
The only thing I guess I'll say is that, first of all, I think that they will just keep it one-on-one, and if that's the case, this is where Sasha turns heel. Like, let's not forget that the whole story has been, hey, Bayley, it's cool that you're here, but I'm the boss. So I strongly see the outcome being that Bayley finally wins the championship in a proper fashion at SummerSlam, and then Sasha turns, because the whole story is like, hey, you won the championship again, but never forget about the first time that you won the title. It was because of me. And then you became number one contender by beating me. So the whole time, like, I've been the thorn on your side because I'm actually better than you. And then you maybe have like Alexa and Nia do something on the side, and maybe even start a bit of a women's tag division. Because at this point, like, I think that Bayley and Sasha can tell a really good story. Because hell, just go back to NXT. Like, these two can tell a kick-ass story when you allow them to. Whether WWE will let them do that or not is, the story that remains to be seen. But what do you guys see? Like, is that a possibility?
Yeah. I guess
Okay.
so.
Let's go from that to a curious thing that happened. So Big Cass had another match with Enzo, and he destroyed him again.
But does that surprise you? Real talk. Does that surprise you?
No,
that's how all of those matches
go.
go.
But I thought it was going to be until
100 times out of
SummerSlam.
100.
I was thinking maybe they're going to do a bit of an absence thing. No, like he gets destroyed, maybe even worse, and then thrown to the side because then it's about Big Show. So it's going to be Big Show versus Big Ass at SummerSlam or something.
Man, talk about the most unfortunate Titantron name placing in the entire
Big
WWE.
Ass versus
They really need to work on that. But I think that's why Enzo got destroyed this week, because the match at SummerSlam is probably going to be Big Cass versus the Big Show. So Enzo is more of a side piece, and it's the story is, even though it's those two, the story is around Enzo Amore and just how badly Enzo gets beat over and over again. This probably isn't even going to be the last time that those two have a match before SummerSlam and Enzo just gets obliterated. It's probably going to be, my guess is that it's a situation where Big Cass takes it too far one day, and that's where the Big Show finally comes out, stops him, and that's what really like go at full steam mode into that match and kind of leaving Enzo in the dust. But that's Enzo's role in this feud. He's supposed to go on a microphone, say some good stuff, and then get his ass whooped so bad that you feel bad for the guy. And he's really good at that role.
He is.
Yeah, he's just a good person to be kind of in Big Show's corner, but also the way to kind of you gain sympathy for Enzo because he's just outmatched by Big Cass every single time. Then Big Show's kind of the equalizer who can come in and actually go toe to toe with Big Cass. I don't see Enzo continuing to feud with Cass after this. I think he's just going to be like in Big Show's corner, and then from there they'll finally move on. I mean, they were tag team for a long time, so it makes sense that Enzo wants to stay involved, and this is Enzo's way of getting revenge by supporting the Big Show, and maybe Big Show is able to beat Big Cass, and then the feud continues until Cass gets the win eventually or something like that. But it's the way for Enzo to get some redemption.
Yeah. Like the whole thing ends up being about, I think Big Cass needs to show off a lot of aggression in this. Like, is the Empire Elbow like his finishing move? I do think it was kind of funny. Like, they were really selling that. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, right? Like, he can't really do like a power move, like a lifting move onto Big Show. But maybe like this is the whole passing of the torch. We've always said, like, hey, who's going to be the next big guy? Oddly enough, like, I think Cass has the tough spot where Braun Strowman is on this show.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about a big, bad monster, Cass, I'm sorry, man. You're not even, like, in the same room
He's not
with Braun Strowman.
SmackDown.
I'll put it this way. If he has to do the Empire Elbow because he can't do his finishing move to the Big Show, he's not the next Big Show.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's Cass is in a weird spot because he doesn't even, I would say that he barely makes the top 5 of big guys on Raw. It seems like a SmackDown transfer might be a really good thing for Cass's career. And I mean, hell, it doesn't matter if you're on Raw or SmackDown anymore because now Kurt Hawkins is on Raw, I guess, and that's a thing.
He's making big moves.
Yeah,
he took on Kurt Angle's son.
Yeah, he can just show up on SmackDown.
I think he's been on Raw, hasn't he? He's been on Raw since the shakeup.
Oh my God, he totally has. I forgot about that.
Face the facts, Keith.
Right, because they had him and Heath Slater had that match so violent on pay-per-view that they had to not show it. Right, this one's on me. I'm mistaken.
It's all right. You know, that's an easy one to mix up. I don't think Hawkins has been the most memorable superstar.
No, not at all. And talking about not memorable, I'm actually going to say that 205, guys, it's worth watching. Like, I've checked it out. I watched it last week. I didn't watch it live, so I saw 205 and then just a wrestling show. It was bad. But I saw it this past weekend. It had great wrestling. I watched it this week live because, like, I figured, hey, may as well check it out. Meanwhile, I jumped some rope. I did a thousand jump ropes, not bad. And a full workout routine. I'm quite proud of myself. Just got to pat myself on the back a little bit for that one. And we got Neville versus Daivari. We got Brian Kendrick talking about like Jack Gallagher. Those two guys have a pretty good storyline going on. And then we had a really, really kick-ass tag team main event between Tony Nese and TJP. Have you guys heard about their tag team name?
No.
Okay,
No.
okay, ready? I swear I did not say this. This is not me. This is their actual tag team name, and you will hate it and love it. And I will tell you in 3, 2, 1, Dabs and Abs.
Oh,
my
yes.
god!
Oh,
Tell
my
me
God,
that ain't
that's
good.
so great. Oh, that makes
It's
me so
amazing.
happy.
It's amazing.
Holy
So-
guacamole.
So the whole thing with Tony Nese
Oh
is
my
that they're
God.
finally embracing the fact that he has, like 8-pack abs. So he's basically Chris Masters in 205 Live. His whole entrance now changed to like
that's so
being
cool.
all about his physique. He's like counting his abs and all that. And then he's teaming up with TJP. And it seems like they're actually trying to make this a thing. Which,
Does he count his abs every week? Like, isn't it 6 all the time?
No, he's got, dude, he's got 8-pack abs. And
Then
he
isn't
made
it
sure
8?
we counted that.
all the time?
Yes, but hey,
Uh.
he sometimes forgets. Who knows? Maybe he went to McDonald's and 2 of them went away, and then it's about them coming back. But they took on the team of Rich Swann and Cedric Alexander, who for a long time I've said, like, that guy, ever since I saw him in the Cruiserweight Classic, I saw him in some independent shows that I watched online. He's got money written all over him, and they're finally moving away from the whole Noam Dar, Alicia Fox thing. And for all I'll say is, if you haven't checked out 205 Live, I know that it gets a lot of negative stigma because it's like after SmackDown, and then it's like weird how you end SmackDown with the main event talent, but then you sort of go back down here. It was awesome wrestling. That tag team match was on fire. It showcased everybody to their best potential. Have you guys watched any 205 Live in the past since it started?
Yep. I watch every now and then. I don't consistently watch it. The last time I watched it, and I'll probably show my age and call myself out a little bit on this, but during the No Fly Zone feud with Drew Gulak, and that was awesome. That was
He's
a
still
nice
got that going on.
twist.
He's still there.
Is it still going on? Okay,
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
remembered him and what's his name? I'm blanking. The guy he was
Wrestler.
feuding with. Wrestler he was feuding with. Had like a best of 5 or something? Right?
Mustafa Ali.
Mustafa Ali. Yeah. They were having like a big match, and that was the week before that was the last time I watched. But I really like that angle, and I really like 205 Live, but it's falls under kind of the same category as NXT for me, where if I have time during the week, I'll watch it. If not, I don't feel too sad about missing it. But now that I know that Dabs and Abs exist, it just went way higher on my list because that is the best.
I must
Dabs and
confess on
Abs.
episode 205 Live that I've never watched a minute of 205 Live.
Ryan. Dab.
Son, your sins have been
Yes,
Yeah.
I have confessed
Dab
my sins.
and you shall be forgiven. Can we get one Ryan McNulty dab for then which people will have to go to the YouTube?
Do I go to the right or the left?
Okay,
to the left, because everything you own is in a box.
to the left. Ryan McNulty,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, just dabbed, and we just got a sub the moment that happened. So, hey, what better moment for that to happen? See, that's why you got to check out the
Dabs
podcast
equal
live.
All right,
Ryan
maybe we
dabbing.
need to get out of this wrestling game and get into like the meme game and just dab for an hour.
Dab
a
and
week
twerk.
Yeah.
No, let's not do the second one.
Dabs for subs.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing, and this was highly unexpected, a lot happened. In the last week, we had a title change hands twice since we last talked about this. So just think about that. So we had Battleground, where Kevin Owens regained his championship, and people are saying, hey, that was all for Madison Square Garden. That was all for the tickets. People were poo-pooing on it already. And then on SmackDown, we thought that we were going to get a triple threat match at SummerSlam because like Chris Jericho came back unexpected. He came back for like the 85th time in wrestling. And then it seemed like the whole buildup was going to be a triple threat match on SummerSlam. And then the way they made it seem was going to be next week, they actually went ahead and did it right here, right now, which I still say to that, I want a YouTube compilation of wrestlers saying that because it happens every single week. Seriously, somebody really please get to that. So we have Chris Jericho, AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, and I love that finish. Some people are complaining about it. I think psychologically it made perfect sense. Like AJ Styles did what Kevin Owens would do. It's like he wanted to become champion. You know, he knew that Jericho was out. He shoves Kevin Owens out. He does the heel thing to basically mock the heel, and he gets the cover. Which, I mean, it makes Jericho look kind of weak because Jericho lost to a frog splash and was down for a very long time, but I'm not going to overly analyze all of that. I do think it was super cool how, like, the U.S. Championship really is the cool, hip thing going on SmackDown Live. So what do you guys make of Chris Jericho coming back and then a lot of trade-offs? Because people have compared this a little bit to Sasha and Charlotte, which there are a couple of arguments that you can make for it. I think it's different, and I think, Ryan, you actually have a little bit of knowledge sauce about that.
Yeah, if people want to compare it to Sasha and Charlotte, I don't think it's on that same level. I'm okay with titles trading around. The thing I hated about the Sasha-Charlotte feud was because it was completely a formula that they stuck to where Sasha won it every time on Raw and Charlotte won it every time on the pay-per-view. And that's just not the case with this. AJ wanted a house show and he won it on a SmackDown. It can really just happen at any time, and that is what makes it exciting. I loved this match, and I loved that, you know, Jericho showed up and immediately picked up where he left off. It made total sense. Hey, last time I was here, I lost my U.S. title. You injured me, Kevin Owens. You put me on the shelf. I have a rightful rematch for that, and so did AJ. So the triple threat made total sense, and it was awesome. And they want to make SmackDown feel exciting again because I think a lot of people the past month or so had really lost faith in SmackDown. So I think a title change was important to regain, you know, to boost morale amongst SmackDown fans, to get people talking about SmackDown again. All it takes is 1 week to turn everything around. For 3 weeks, everyone was down on SmackDown. Now everyone's super excited because the show, it's like the show's in a totally brand new direction. Every single feud has been changed to something else. It feels like a totally new show.
That's what you said 2 weeks ago, Keith. I now remembered. The whole thing that you said 2 weeks ago was that in wrestling, you can have a bunch.
1 week.
Yeah. You can have a bunch of crappy stuff, but the moment that something good happens, it's almost like all is forgiven. Hey, we're now, you know, right back on track, 5-star shows. But then next week,
most would call that an abusive relationship.
Yes,
it is.
It's
and
also
you know
called
what?
Watching WWE.
If you look at us with the WWE, boy, that's a dark path to lean on. But
damn it,
to kind of go down that train of thought, look at the U.S. title versus the WWE title. A few weeks ago, we were all complaining about how much the WWE title didn't mean and how much the U.S. title is so much more prestigious than it. And then we have events leading on this SmackDown that kind of I feel like they're very equalized right now, where the WWE title just like boom, a week later it has all this meaning again, and the US title is kind of in the same spot. Now they're at a equal level playing field because of the events of 1 week. So it really is a situation where everything can change in a cycle. Like after one pay-per-view, it's almost it's a very hard reset button, and anything can happen in the WWE, folks.
It's just cool how they're finally doing what I think they've struggled to do for a very long time. Like, I get we're in a bit of a honeymoon period where maybe the honeymoon ends and then both shows can hypothetically just really be terrible again. But the whole thing is, how do you make the pay-per-views not only matter? I know Battleground is a bad example, but Great Balls of Fire wasn't too bad. And you guys enjoyed Battleground, right? So, like, hey, it's not for everybody, but they make you care about what's going to happen. And then when you watch SmackDown or Raw to find out what's going to happen, they figure out a way to make you already care about next week's show, not just the SummerSlam pay-per-view. So that's what really makes the whole thing feel big. I think a lot of times you complain about, hey, the go-home shows are feeling kind of crappy. They're not feeling much. And it's because we already know the match is going to happen at the pay-per-view. And everything in between then is just stretching out the pizza dough. How long can you stretch this before it just gets rotten and then you don't even care about it anymore? They figured out a way, and it's by not doing things that are too complicated. Do wrestling matches with a purpose, with established characters. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You brought Jericho back and he got the pin. I thought that was ingenious. Because, like, maybe people thought, hey, now Jericho is going to get the championship and it's going to be a triple threat trade-off. Like, now Kevin Owens has his rematch clause, so what's going to happen there? Could it be a triple threat match? Like, who knows, right? A bunch of options, a bunch of questions that remain to be answered. And with that, we move on to possibly the biggest thing to talk about now, which was the modern-day Maharaja. And
Maharaja.
The fact that he wants a challenger for SummerSlam. So everybody, myself included, we were waiting for the trumpets, as we mentioned at the top of the show, and exactly what we thought was going to happen happened, to the point where Cena didn't even hide it. He didn't let Jinder Mahal speak. He just cut the promo, said Super Cena, rinse, wash, and repeat, I'm gone. Daniel Bryan put the stop to it and actually puts in a person that people would really want to watch. Like, in another world or in another environment, people would say, hey, you're doing John Cena versus Nakamura, and it's not a pay-per-view. It still has a purpose. They're not just doing a SmackDown match for the sake of doing a SmackDown match. This is all about what's going to happen on that SmackDown match. That's, number one, going to tease a possible feud down the line, right? But like between Nakamura and Cena, which I don't think will happen at this rate. Like, that requires Nakamura basically to become heel. And we know John Cena is now going to be like full-time. So I think that this is going to be it. We're going to get this match and maybe like they cross paths in a triple threat or something. And then number two, it's about, are they actually going to put Nakamura versus Jinder, which I think would be something brand new. Like, picture this. You have a WWE Championship match between Nakamura and Jinder Mahal. That's a huge risk. You're removing, you're not Roman Reigns, not Randy Orton, not John Cena. You're removing any of the WWE usuals. It's only about two basically brand new people, because Jinder Mahal, man, like, I know he's been in WWE for a couple of years, but he traded off the old Mahal for this one. What do you guys make of the whole thing, considering this is an actual dream match that is happening on SmackDown Live?
Boy, they won't let you forget it. They are hyping that whole thing as this is a dream match. Yeah, and they absolutely should, because like you said, I do think that this is the actual one chance that we're going to get this match happening. It reminds me a lot of, do you remember earlier in the year when it was Randy Orton versus AJ Styles for a number one contendership for, I think it was who was going to face Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania? And the perception of that was it was the exact opposite, where everybody was like, oh, this is a big match and they're throwing it away on SmackDown. But this feels like the opposite of that, where it's a big match where I'm actually very excited for what they're going to do on SmackDown with it. Maybe we're going to actually get like a very incredible match between John Cena and Nakamura. Now, do I think that we're going to see Nakamura and Jinder at SummerSlam? Probably not. I think that this might be Nakamura's first loss, whether it be dirty or clean. And Big Match John goes into the big match at SummerSlam. But it's going to be really cool to see that match. And if down the line Nakamura and Cena end up going one-on-one again, then it almost gives them more room to work with, because now they're not just building a feud around, these are the first time these guys ever went head-to-head. Now they can move in a different direction with that if it does end up being a pay-per-view match. And I'm cool with that. So I'm hoping for the best this week. And they're going to have some mighty stiff competition on Raw with those three stakes going at each other. So hopefully they bring a good match.
Filet mignon on SmackDown.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this dream match happening sooner than expected is really a way to continue the momentum of SmackDown. Like I said, I think they might have gotten a little scared with the amount of negativity that Battleground got. That they were like, we need a powerhouse lineup going into SummerSlam. So they're going to do this match, and I like that it's being built up as big. Like Keith said, they did the Randy Orton AJ Styles thing just kind of like for no reason, and I feel like that was kind of a waste, although they can always revisit it later. But yeah, Cena versus Nakamura, I'm expecting either Cena to win or somehow this becomes yet another triple threat. I think they should shy away from that many multi-man matches, but it certainly seems like a possibility if they don't want either guy to take a loss right now. I would be quite surprised if they went with Nakamura versus Jinder at SummerSlam. That just does not seem like a likely scenario at all to me. Jinder versus Cena makes total sense. You know, this is really the true test for Jinder Mahal. You're going up against John Cena. It's sink or swim. You got Cena's 17th title reign hanging in the balance. Like it seems like a perfect build up for a SummerSlam feud. So it would surprise me if it was either a multi-man or Nakamura getting the win. I'm expecting John Cena to win. I just hope it's an awesome match and lives up to the hype.
My only fear is that somehow, if it is a dirty finish, it goes into something along the lines of the Great Khali costing John Cena the match because America, and we get Cena versus Khali at SummerSlam.
Oh my God.
That would be bad news.
You say that, and that
sounds
totally
like a 2010
possible.
feud, and I want to cry.
Yeah, if you can go on the network and look at a Great Khali versus John Cena match. You won't enjoy it, but you can go look at it.
I mean, all I'll say is that it would totally not be out of the question, to have maybe a little bit more exposure for India. I believe the WWE is going to tour India in September. So we could see a scenario where maybe Jinder Mahal loses the championship in SummerSlam and wins it back with the home field advantage, or he goes into it, which seems odd because I think that it would be a much cooler story to see that crowd have him win, right? Where it will lead like a whole gap of what's going to happen in SummerSlam to like get that big heat, if you will, if he's going to then regain the championship in September. And when you think about that, Great Khali makes perfect sense. You bring him in as a bad guy, people are going to boo Khali. You don't need to do too much as Great Khali to be booed. But then in India,
which
they already
works
know
in
him.
Khali's favor because he can't do too much anyway.
Exactly. If anything, he's probably gotten worse. He could only choke Randy Orton awkwardly in the cage. It
was a miracle he climbed up as high as he did.
Agreed.
Rumors are he is still on top of that cage to this day. He is still like halfway into it. So possibly we may be getting ourselves a dream match. And when you think about this, one of the cool things about doing something like this on SmackDown is anything else that happens on that show is that much bigger because people are going to be tuning in to watch this. Like the people that don't watch WWE now, but they say, hey, like Cena's going to take on this Nakamura guy. He's like a Japanese guy, like New Japan, like something like AJ was also over there. And then you're going to get the WWE faithfuls that are totally expecting John Cena to win. So any match that happens just before, this is a pay-per-view. Like this SmackDown, they got it treated as a pay-per-view. And oddly enough, the last time they did something like this was on the Glasgow show. Shout out to people at Glasgow. You know who you are. Where we had that cage match with Becky Lynch and Alexa Bliss, right? I think
yeah,
it was,
what country was that?
Scotland. Scotland?
Yes.
Close enough.
Oh,
yeah.
Wait, I'm
You
right,
got it.
right?
Yeah, you're right.
You actually made me question. I'm like, no, I can't go. That took like 5 months to wash off.
I'll be straight with it. I have no idea where Glasgow is. If you say it's in Scotland, I'll believe you. If you say it's in England, I believe you. I'm an ignorant Canadian, and I don't care.
That right there is a shirt.
Hashtag
I am
heel.
an ignorant Canadian. I don't care. And then you put the cartoon Keith looking all sad somewhere in that shirt.
Yeah.
Folks, if you want to hear a little bit more of Keith, you can. Because when you send us questions to bytethatcast@gmail.com or on Twitter, use the hashtag AskBT. Or if you're listening to us on YouTube, you can drop a comment with a question, not live, not even 205 live, but in the archive. So once this is backlogged, you can comment there as well. So without further ado, Keith, take it away with the questions, my friend.
All right. So our first question this week comes in from Daryl T. And Daryl T asks, I understand the media can quickly escalate and fabricate a story, and for the most part, the WWE Universe does not know the real truth of controversy backstage. My question is, do you believe the WWE is at fault for the downfall of most superstars that go through controversy? In this case, I'm referring to Paige. Paige has been on a roller coaster of controversy, and do you believe the WWE could have prevented this? I'm sure some of it's her fault, in his opinion.
So for context, things came out stating that Paige, there was an arrest warrant out for Paige. That turned out to be fake. So I'm not even going to mention the shitty website, for lack of a better term, that did that only for the clickbait. So I'm not even going to reference them at all. Screw you, honestly, because you're messing somebody's life up. It's just not fun, and it kind of pisses me off, as you can kind of tell right now. So what I'll say is that there is no arrest warrant out for Paige. But nevertheless, right, there's a lot of exposure. And then the question, I guess, is with the WWE lifestyle and everything that's happening, is WWE responsible for it? I'm going to say no, but the lifestyle that WWE has, and Paige got into this when she was 20, right? I'm not saying when she started wrestling, but basically FCW onward, she was 19, 20 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. The thing is, for a lot of these wrestlers who have had, their ups and downs, in a lot of ways, wrestling is a large contributor to that. Especially, 10, 20 years ago, when these guys were beating their bodies up, there was no drug policy. These guys are independent contractors. They have to get their own health insurance and really have to look after themselves. So it's easy for wrestlers to fall into drugs and all that, and WWE, I think, in recent years has done a lot more to rectify that. They offer free rehab, I think, to any former employee. I know that's helped Scott Hall out a lot and things like that. So they do try and rectify that, and they were probably guilty of contributing to that in the past. I think there's a lot of support there now within the organization that if you're messing up, most of that is on you. And I think Paige, just being young, having money, and maybe hanging out with the wrong crowd has caused her to basically, go down a bad path. And, WWE can only do so much. They can't be your parent. At some point, you have to take responsibility for yourself and your actions, and I think a lot of it is on her. I'm not saying WWE is always 100% innocent, but I think in the situation of Paige, a lot of that is on her.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I would say that, at least from an outsider looking in perspective, things are probably the best they've ever been as far as creating a support system in the WWE. But at the same time, the wrestler's life is life in the fast lane. It's not an easy life. You look at the road stories that all these guys have that are more visible than ever because of things like podcasts and even the ride along. That's the word I'm looking for. All of these road stories that the guys are telling, you see just how grueling that lifestyle can be. And it does take a toll on you. Look at all the stories of the past of former wrestlers that turn to things like drugs and alcohol just because the life is so taxing. But at the same time, that's part of, you need to take responsibility for it. If the life isn't for you, then yeah, you're making a lot of money, but sometimes your health is worth more than your money. And in the Paige situation, as an outsider looking in, you can only speculate, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe it was just a little too much, especially with the health problems that she's mentioned that she's had. But the WWE can't be your parent completely, and you do need to take some responsibility. But I do think it's a middle ground thing, because we'll never know for sure what kind of support that the WWE offered her while she was there and while she continues to still be there. So unless we end up knowing that one day, it's really impossible to speculate exactly how much at fault the company is on this and how much lies at the person's feet. That's my opinion, at least.
And the quick thing I wanted to add is look at Chester Bennington, right? Like that's something that just happened. Unfortunately, he committed suicide, and he was part of a band that pretty much all of us listened to growing up. And let's not forget that WWE superstars are very much celebrities. Like these people are under the radar 24/7. People obsess over them. Like we've heard Paige talk about like obsessed fans that ask, hey Paige, can I marry you? No, seriously, like actual marriage. And these people, like, it's easy for us to say, hey, like the money is not everything. There's also life, but these people are pressured. Plus, like they have a lifestyle that once you get used to that lifestyle, it's very easy for us that we're still on the ground level. We work paycheck to paycheck, right? For the most part, these people have savings, especially with Total Divas. Like that's not her only source of income, wrestling, right? Like it was Total Divas, merchandise. She probably didn't know what to do with her life. And that's why I mentioned Chester. Like a lot of times it's just all of these different factors that play in. Like, yeah, the WWE lifestyle has something to do with it, but so does people in football. And I know that's a hot topic right now with concussions and brain damage with musicians and the depression that they go through. Like all of this stuff is some shady, dark stuff. So if you really want to get to the nitty gritty, like any job that exposes you to be out there is something that can make you feel worse. Like even in this example, like us, like we have a fairly small podcast in the context of everything. Like let's say, like I've gone through some stuff recently, but I still gotta do the show, right? Like I'm not gonna be in the show and be all sad and be crying about it. Imagine those people. You have 5 million, 10 million, 15 million people looking at you, and you're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to show any of that emotion. You build that up and I guess like Paige, it's like, hey, I'm just going to get high. I'm going to get drunk. I'm going to get with this guy who's probably even crazier than I am, and he's going through some stuff as well. Like, it's a really sensitive situation. How many wrestlers have committed suicide because of it?
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of things where being famous and in the public eye sounds awesome because, oh, you're rich and you're famous and all that, but it's not as easy as everyone thinks it is.
Yep.
Life in the fast lane, hard times, daddy. Well, thank you for the question. Our next one comes in from Terrence, and Terrence asks, hello, bros. Hello. So my question for you guys is, what is your favorite storyline of all time in the WWE or WCW, and which storyline do you hate the most? Would you change the solution to a storyline to make it better than it already was? If so, why or why not?
Oddly enough, for me, two of my favorite storylines involve Randy Orton, which now seems weird to really think about because I don't really care about him, but one of them was Legend Killer by far. And like, as somebody that didn't grow up, like the network wasn't a thing back then, right? So in a way, he introduced a lot of people to Harley Race, to Bob Orton, to all these people like Bob Orton with the cast, like the match with Undertaker. And then the other one was Randy Orton with Triple H and Stephanie. Like that was one of the last storylines.
Oh God,
that was probably the last storyline that we'll ever get like that, where like there's kissing happening. It's about conquering a woman. Like it's some dark stuff the WWE like would not even get close to now.
God,
it was so good.
So
like,
good.
and they went out there. Like there were cameras inside houses, which in other ways would be questionable, but because we were all invested into the storyline, it was really cool. And it showed the fact, like,
that was pretty dumb back in the day. It was a good storyline, but that house scene was
overly produced.
Can't follow you down that road.
It was overly produced,
good.
But I love the commitment to it. Like Randy Orton is crazy, but then Triple H is trying to fight back. Like this is where the Viper was the Viper. Like it wasn't just a nickname. Now Randy Orton, like the Viper, that's a nickname. The Apex Predator, it's just a nickname. It was a character then. Like you believe that. I'll save the worst one for later.
One of my favorites, although it ended in a very disappointing way, was probably the Matt Hardy returning to fight Edge storyline, just because like it had so much momentum and it was so unexpected and exciting for its time. I think nowadays, like, I mean, the internet was a big thing back then, but it's nothing compared to what it is now. Like we know way more of what goes on than we did then. So there was still that like air of how real is this, and I thought that was super cool.
And it's probably the biggest moment in our namesake, Byte This. But
True.
That's true.
for favorites, the answer is probably the same as Juan with the Randy Orton Triple H storyline, because Randy Orton's one of my favorite wrestlers, and I still feel that way today, good or bad. And that was peak Randy Orton. That was the best version of Randy Orton. It was so good. Like that's really one of the last times I was super engaged in wrestling, where I needed to tune in to see what Randy Orton was going to do the next week. And
It was
God,
like 10
I love
years
that.
ago.
It's
like
a
9?
dark thought.
That was
Yeah,
that was when that was 2010, 8
2009, 2008, WrestleMania 20
around there.
It was WrestleMania 25 because they had to follow Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. So do the math. I don't feel like it. But so I'm going to say either that, or just to be different, I would say a very close second is Triple H versus Mick Foley back in the late 99, 2000. The feud that consisted of Cactus Jack versus Triple H at the 2000 Royal Rumble, and the whole thing was that like Mick Foley wasn't good enough to win the big one, and he ended up having that hardcore match that I mentioned, and the Hell in a Cell match with Triple H, and just all that stuff. Like that's when you saw Mick Foley kind of transform, where he did the whole mankind isn't good enough for this feud. You're right. I can't get the job as or get the job done as mankind. So I'm going to transform into Cactus Jack and then go all crazy. It's a really good feud.
I want to add to the thing he asked about which story would you change. Definitely Rob Van Dam cashing in the Money in the Bank. Like when he had that match with John Cena, like around that point, he was scorching hot. And then he did something stupid and got caught with weed, with Sabu. And then after that, Rob Van Dam wasn't in the main event anymore, ever again. And I get it. Like in the real world, or in my ideal world, I guess, I would have avoided getting caught with the weed. And I would have loved to see, like, this was the only time that Rob Van Dam was a main event guy, because it was cool to hate John Cena, and they capitalized on that so well. But the moment that happened, they got so cold on him, and there was a gap. Like, there wasn't a cool guy. He was the cool, a baby face that could show off in the ring. He was an actual good wrestler, and he messed it up. That was on him.
That definitely derailed a lot of that WWE CW like beginning. They were trying to get it off to a hot start, and that definitely didn't help it. One thing I would change, one storyline I definitely change that I think would be, it's probably the most popular answer, but have the Nexus win against John
Cena.
Yep, that's the one. I would say one I would change is have Dolph Ziggler not get a concussion after he cashed in the Money in the Bank, and give Dolph Ziggler a real title reign at that time instead of just dropping it immediately. I think some great things could have happened.
Did you hear about that former writer though who commented on that, saying that like Ziggler was like never the plan to be a long-term feud, and that they essentially gave him that title win for like a WrestleMania, like a post WrestleMania pop or whatever,
Zack Ryder,
for the
basically.
night after.
Yeah. I mean, it worked, but it's a bit of a bummer to know that
it is. Like I think reading that, there was a legit quote with when Vince McMahon said that they were going to have Dolph Ziggler win. He said, "Let me note, we are not pushing Dolph Ziggler." So sad face.
That is sad face. But
where the hell's he been, actually?
Exactly.
Feels bad, man.
All right. So thank you for the question. Our next one comes in from Ron from Detroit. Old Detroit Ron asks, WWE is committed to 5 hours on television every week. Raw feels too long and SmackDown feels too crowded. My question is, do you think that both brands would improve if you took a half an hour from Raw and added it to SmackDown? Thank you for being awesome. No. Thank you, Detroit Ron, for being awesome.
Good band.
Don't mess with the 2-hour SmackDown. You know what? If we have to leave it the way it is, I'm completely for that. I don't want to add any more time. I like the 2-hour format, and I would rather just get rid of the 1 hour on Raw. But you know what? They have the cruiserweights now. I think they could make the 3 hours a little better, but they're utilizing it okay right now. I think SmackDown's fine with 2 hours. I don't think it's too crowded. I think it's better to leave it as is than to change it.
I agree with that, because in the grand scheme of things, a half an hour isn't a very long time. So if you took a half an hour off of Raw, you'd probably still feel it in the same way that 3 hours feels, and it would only make SmackDown feel longer. Because the nice thing about SmackDown, when it's a good show, is it gives you more opportunity to feel like you want more from the show because it is shorter. Now, it can fall flat miserably, of course, as we've seen recently, with the exception of this week. But with Raw, taking away that half an hour does not create that. And no, I think giving that half an hour could only damage the product.
Yeah, I think it's like a lot of these movies, they got cut down for time, and then you see the director's cut edition, and they're not necessarily better. It's because more is not something that makes sense to me. Like, I think that any good writer, any good television show can tell a really good story in a short amount of time. Like, perfect example, this weekend we have a review of the Netflix series Glow coming out. That is a 30-minute, 10-episode series, and I loved it. And every episode made me want more from the next one, and I also didn't feel burnt out. I didn't feel like they were trying to overly stretch a story. Whereas, like, the moment you add even 5 more minutes to a show, it's like, Raw is not a 3-hour show. Raw is a 3-hour and 15-minute show. Like, we forget about that. They actually go over every single week. And you can tell me, because of the ad revenue, because of the blah, 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 you can't do a 3-hour show. You actually got to go over that, dude. Cut one of them out. Cut 2 hours off. Have Raw just be a 1-hour show, and I'd be happy with that. 205 Live is super enjoyable because of that. You get a really solid match. You get a little bit of story. You get a match that builds up a match for the next week, and you get a champion somewhere in the process. 1 hour. Same thing with NXT. Same thing with Lucha Underground. Like, less is more is the way to go.
It only goes over right now because it ain't Chrisley season. Just wait till Chrisley Knows Best comes back, and then there's something to watch. That's the real 4th hour of Raw. God, I love Chrisley Knows Best. But thank you for the question. Our next one comes in from the true Prince of Pro, who asks, during the Punjabi match Mania stream. Now, this is something that you streamed, yes?
Yes. For those that don't know.
Yeah, you'll have to help me out.
Yeah, I streamed Fire Pro Wrestling this week before Raw. That's something that I want to try and do every week whenever I can, which is stream at around 6 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're not doing much, maybe hang out with me. And I did a tournament, which, just in tribute to the Punjabi person match, I just called it Punjabi Match Mania. Jinder Mahal was in it, so that was the justification. But he lost in the first round, so it's just. This is just a tribute.
He was hindered.
Congratulations. You hindered.
I wish you were there.
But nonetheless,
matter of opinion.
The true Prince of Pro says, during the Punjabi Prison Match Mania stream, we were talking about WWE ECW being on the network. And I mentioned how much I loved the rally towel Ricky Ortiz.
Oh, boy.
Juan mentioned that I should ask a question about him because for some reason, Keith gets triggered by Ricky Ortiz. So the question is, why do you not like Ricky Ortiz, Keith? So back in the day, brother, I thought Ricky Ortiz was literal human wrestling trash. I'm sure the guy's fine, but something about his face just rubbed me the wrong way, and I hated Ricky Ortiz. All of these years later, I don't even know why. It's like the old hate
this guy.
Gone.
I just had to Wikipedia him.
You know when you hated the dive? It was that dive he did. The ozone, was it?
There was some segment where it was right when he first debuted, and like he had this like face look, this like yeah. look on his face in a segment, and I just wanted to slap the teeth out of his mouth for it, and I hated him ever since. I never # gave Ricky Ortiz a chance, and all of these years later, I can't say I feel that same hate.
Oh,
So I guess me and Mr. Ortiz have made up in our own weird way that he'll probably never know about. But yeah, I didn't like him at all. There's no rhyme or reason behind it.
he was
I
one
just
of
didn't like
many
Ricky
failed
Ortiz.
WWE experiments around that time that also include like Kenzo Suzuki,
So I was
the
right.
Gemini, Rene Dupree. This could go on
Sylvester
for a while.
Terkay.
Yeah, Terkay and Burke, Kevin Thorne, the Zombie,
Mike Knox.
Oh, Mike
Knox. He was a
The
thing.
revitalization of Hardcore Holly's career.
Rotten
Sylvain
Teeth,
Grenier.
Snitsky.
Rob Conway.
Hey, watch it.
Mark
Simon
Jindrak.
Dean. The reflection
Luther
of perfection.
Reigns.
Yeah, okay, Luther Reigns. Charlie
Ken
Haas.
Kennedy.
Let's just bring Charlie Haas in there.
Charlie Haas. Man, there's a lot of those.
Vladimir Kozlov.
Vladimir Kozlov.
Yep.
Kazarny.
Kazarny. That is the winner. Paul Burchill. Before the whole incest story.
Man, Pirate Paul
Actually,
Burchill.
both of them failed.
They
Katie
never got
Lee
to the X
Burchill.
on the Titantron.
No!
Damn
Never
you,
got
Paul
to the
Burchill.
Man, what a dark time for wrestling.
Yep.
And Ricky Ortiz was no better. But thank you for the question. Our final question of this show comes from TMK Tanner, who simply asks, favorite cookie?
Snickerdoodle.
Got my answer right away. Chocolate cookie, white chocolate chips.
Ooh.
Amazing.
A peanut butter cookie with or without chocolate chip.
Okay,
I'm
here's
there for
the
the peanut
thing.
butter, baby.
Are you guys dippers?
No.
No. Damn.
I don't
That's an
I don't
inappropriate
even know
question.
yeah, I don't feel comfortable with that question, so my answer is no.
Like in milk. Do you dip the
Yeah.
cookies in milk and coffee?
No.
Would you like it the coffee?
No, I don't like a soggy ass cookie, man.
You don't put it in there for 30 minutes.
It's a soggy cookie and it just makes the milk shitty. Like you're ruining a good glass of milk. So just eat the cookie.
I don't really drink milk on its own. I'm not a fan of that. So I drink a lot of water. So I don't really want cookies in water. You know what I mean?
Well, that
Yeah.
sounds
Just eat
like
the
a
cookie.
bad
I don't want
news
to. I don't want to water it down with any type of liquid. Just let me have my cookie.
Okay, then
And
the
I did it
follow-up
all for the
question.
nookie.
Do you guys prefer chewy or solid cookies?
Solid.
I like solid with a bit of chew to it. You know what I mean? There's that good middle
Yeah.
ground.
So then like a
Yeah,
hard
that's
cookie
true.
but with like big chocolate chunks and those
Like,
are kind of
yeah.
chunky?
Yeah, mainly like it's a more solid cookie, but it's, you know, when it's fresh out of the oven and you let it cool for a couple minutes and it's got, you know, it's soft to the bite.
Yeah, like I don't like a cookie with filling in the middle of it. Like if there's a chocolate filling in the middle and it's chewy from that, that's unnecessary in my mind.
That's
There's
better for like
never-
a cake,
oh.
like lava cake, or
Oh,
lava
lava
cake.
cake.
It's just unnecessarily messy. Just make a cake. You don't have to get fancy in the middle of it.
I'm hungry.
For the same reason I don't like Boston cream donuts.
I was
and that
trying
kind
to think
stuff.
of that bake
Oh,
a
hell
cake
no.
song, but you said that I just thought of that.
It's a piece of cake to bake a pretty cake. I'll start singing the Little John version, so I need to stop here.
No. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for dropping some of those awesome questions. Remember, Byte That Cast on Twitter, #AskBT, ByteThatCast@gmail.com, or commenting on YouTube. For everything else, now we have a lot of cool things that are happening. So without further ado, let's get ourselves to the Byte That Weekly Update, featuring Ryan McNulty from Boston, Massachusetts, Keith Pushek from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and Juan.
Wow,
Just
the
one.
intro all over again. I like it.
205
for-
Live, people, welcome.
Yes. 205 Live BT Weekly Update. As
Oh.
Juan mentioned, we did a review of Season 1 of Glow. So Juan and I both watched the show in its entirety. So we give a review of the entire season. We do give a warning for spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, you can watch the beginning of it. But if you don't want to be spoiled, we recommend you go watch the show first. So that's going to be up this weekend. We also mentioned a new Patreon exclusive is that we do a thing called BT Commentaries, where we do a full commentary track over a WWE event on the network that you can play along with. So if you have the network, you can play this along with our audio to literally get our commentary throughout the entire thing. And our first event that we did was Bad Blood 2004, which is a significant event because that was the first time all three of us had ever talked to each other watching wrestling. So that's a really memorable event for us, and we do an entire commentary track of that. And like I said, that is a Patreon exclusive. We're also doing a new thing called Fan Friday, which is going to start this Friday, where we answer Patreon questions. And that video is going to be available for everyone Friday, but Patrons actually get early access. So if you want to become a Byte That patron, you can head over to patreon.com/Byte That, and you can see all the perks available. So thank you guys for listening. You guys, anything else you guys want to add?
I need more energy from you, Ryan. Like we get a dream match next week, and this is how you close out the show with this
And we've got Fan Friday.
Dream match. Gotta get down on Friday. Everybody's looking forward to the weekend.
Yeah, there's a little bit of drop up there. I felt like I forgot something, but hey, I did forget something. If you want to help out the show in another way besides just our Patreon, which is super cool, you can leave a review on our either Apple Podcast or Stitcher. 5-star reviews. They really help us grow, get the show out there. And if you haven't had a chance to join us for the live edition of the Byte That podcast, this is 205 live, but there's going to be a 206 live too. So youtube.com/ByteThatCast.
We're heading into uncharted territory, folks. It's 207
Nathan Drake in the house.
PM on the YouTube channel. You can catch us live. Join the fun with everybody else. It's a cool time. So thank you guys for listening to 205 Live. We'll see you next week.
I'm just making this awkward right now.
Partying fun.
Fun.
Partying.
Fun. Ryan, you're looking forward to the weekend?
Gonna have cereal.